Hello, it's the Friday Talkie. So, there was no Friday Talkie last week because I wasn't home. I was trekking around places I used to live, and I made a video that's on another channel, and if you want to see it, link down there, maybe somewhere around here. I plugged it a couple of times already, but since most people watch these Friday Talkie videos, I thought I'd plug it here as well. Yeah, anyway, so I wasn't here. I've been back best part of a week and spending most of the week thinking, what the hell am I going to talk about for the Friday Talkie? Because sometimes I ain't got a clue. And I make it up as I go along, frequently. But I haven't watched a lot of videos. I often respond to videos and I haven't watched an awful lot because I've been busy and, well, actually recovering from my trip. It was exhausting because I did a lot of walking. Anyway, so I got to last night thinking, I haven't got a topic, I ain't going to be able to do a video, I've got nothing to talk about. And then I looked around my room and thought, well, let's talk about some of the stuff I've got here then. Not a system review, not going to show gameplay. I'm going to talk about handhelds. And as I said, not system reviews. If you want to know technical specifications or when they were made or who they were made by and who designed them and blah blah blah, Google it, because that's not what I'm going to do. And if you want gameplay, I will actually add links to playlists or videos or whatnot if I've done gameplay videos. But I'm going to talk about handhelds and what I think of particular handhelds, and do I like them or do I not like them? Do I use them as gaming devices now, as I do like handhelds and gaming. So I'll start at the start. The Microvision by Milton Bradley, designed by the guy, here I am doing exactly what I said I wasn't going to do. It's designed by the guy who designed the Vectrex. I don't know when it was made. Was it 79? Was it before that? Can't remember. I've done a review somewhere. Look it up. I don't care that I don't know. What do I think of this? It is a fascinating curiosity, and that is all that it is, really. I've got Blockbuster on it. It's the only game I've got for it, which is like it's like Breakout on it's a very, very low resolution screen, but it's not like a Game & Watch type thing where you've got pre-shaped sprites, if you like, that only appear in specific places. This is actually like a grid of squares, like a normal screen would be, except they're just very big squares. And it plays Breakout, and you've got a proper dial there to you turn that and move your bat along the bottom. And you would think, well, that's fantastic, that's exactly what you need for a really good game of Breakout, and that's true. And it works fairly well in that respect. The problem is just too bloody hard. Blockbuster. Breakout on this is brutally fast. Your bat isn't especially wide. You push the button to make the ball come down and bam, it's gone. And you've lost that life. You push it again, bam, it's gone. I've got a video of it, I'll link somewhere. You'll be able to see for yourself. I have never played any of the other games on this, so I can't comment on them. But, I mean, do I play this for fun? No, I don't, because in all honesty it's so bloody hard that it isn't fun. I keep it as a historic artifact, if you like. It is interesting. It has a place in history that is notable and noteworthy, and for that reason I like it. I find it, considering the technology of the time, and like LCD was pretty new at that time, this is an impressive piece of kit. I don't know what they cost back then. I actually bought this for a stupidly low price. Was it £5 or £15? I can't remember. And I'm sure it's worth more than that now. Yeah, I like it, but I don't play it. Next is this Timeout toss-up. I haven't put the batteries in it because I don't want them to run out, and they're up there, and I'm not going to sit and play it because I'm not. This is Nintendo Ball. is genuine Nintendo. It's not a cheap knockoff. Just because it says Timeout and it's called Toss Up doesn't mean it is not genuine Nintendo ball. It's just that in the UK they didn't have a license or a distribution deal or something or other over here, so they rebranded it. I don't know. Timeout, who the hell were they? Were they a known company? I don't know the ins and outs, but nevertheless, I got one of these in 1980, whatever it was. 1980, maybe. Was it 81? I think. Whenever. From, and I mentioned this in the video on my other channel, Roy's Bargains. And it cost £20 back then, which in 1980, 81, 82, whatever year it was a lot of money. That was a hell of a lot of money. For what is a very, very simplistic game. It is the first Game & Watch that Nintendo ever made. And you've just got a little guy who's like doing that and juggling balls. And if you score 999, it stops. You reach the end. You win. I used to be able to do that. Consistently, I could thrash it. I don't think I can do it now. It needs practice. You've got Game A, Game B. I don't remember what the difference is. I haven't played it in a while. And it also acts as a watch. It's got a little clock on it, which is great until the batteries run out. These things go for pretty crazy money now. I bought this on eBay because my original one, it suffered from LCD screen rot, if you like. The LCD, the liquid bleeds into the whatever it is that they're in, and it just goes all horrible. So that got thrown away many years ago. I bought this on eBay 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that, for £70, which was actually pretty good because they frequently sell for significantly more. Did I pay £70 or was that the going rate? Did I pay £50? Can't remember. These sell for quite a bit of money now, and if you find them boxed, wow. But there are like reproduction ones. They re-released them and there are reproduction boxes, and it's like, yeah, there are unscrupulous people who will sell the reproduction ones or the re-releases and say, you know, it's an original, when they're not. This one's got a serial number on it, 00162 Is that like, was it the 162,000th one made? I don't know. I like it. It's great. They're stupidly expensive now. Are they worth that kind of money? Well, in terms of fun, if you don't want it as a historically interesting item, not really. £70, £50, whatever they're selling for now, to play this game is stupid. You can get the game on like Game Boy, I don't know if it was the Game Boy Advance, I think. It's a Game Boy compilation thing where they did the old Game & Watch games. Not as good, not as authentic, but if you just want to play the game, it's a lot cheaper than getting one of these. So, the Game Boy. I bought one of these for a girlfriend back in 92-ish, something like that. I had a Mega Drive, I bought her one of these. And I had seen these in the shops for a long time before I ever bought that one. I don't know what year were they made? Does it say? I don't. 1989. Yeah, they've been around for a while, and it was because of the packaging and frankly piss poor advertising. These were bundled with Tetris, and that was like the game that they promoted with it. So all the pictures I ever saw of these on the box or posters or whatever showed it playing Tetris. And I thought, well, that's just a big fat Game & Watch then, isn't it? It's just blocks. I thought it's something like the Microvision, which was out donkey's years earlier. What a piece of junk. Haven't they progressed beyond that? And why is it so expensive? I thought. big fat chunky graphics, no better than a ZX81, in a handheld for 100 and whatever quid? No way, I thought. Bad advertising, bad promotion. I blame it on. Could I have investigated? Yes, but my first impression said it's not worth investigating. So I didn't buy one for ages, until I saw someone else playing one, and they weren't playing Tetris. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know they did that. I thought they were just like a Game & Watch, a fat one, an expensive and fat one. At which point I started getting interested. What do I think of them now? I like them. People complain about the screen, and yeah, it's not ideal. The Game Boy Pocket has a better screen, but it's kind of like playing Spectrum games, really, albeit without the colour, or the colour clash. You know, it's that kind of resolution, that kind of quality in terms of speed and power, and game design quite often is very Spectrum-ish. And that's not a bad thing. So yeah, I mean, things like the Mega Drive and the Amiga and all of that lot were taking over in people's homes as the game system of choice, but out and about, playing something that was, in terms of game design, a good few years out of date, if you like, it was fine. It was great. And that's kind of still how it is. If you play a handheld now, you're going to be playing a handheld that's got the kind of graphical quality of the last generation of hardware. I say that, and I'm thinking, what about the Vita? That's not up there with the PS3 yet, is it? I don't know, I've never played one. But we'll get on to that. Yeah, pretty much, it was last generation in terms of power at that time, and that was fine. And I think it always has been and always will be. So, I like them. Game Boy Pocket. I really like this. While I like the original Game Boy because it is just iconic in its shape and size, and it does what it does very well, this is just more practical. It's got a better screen, it's smaller. You have to have pretty big pockets to put a Game Boy in. This will fit in, well, maybe not your jeans pocket. Will that fit? That actually will fit in my jeans pocket, but I wouldn't actually do that. I like this for playing on a beach, for playing outdoors. If I'm going to be somewhere where it's sunny, most of your backlit colour screen consoles, handheld consoles, are pretty rubbish. You can't see the screen in bright sunlight. I mean, PSP, GBA Micro, sunlight, you just can't see them. This, because it's reflective, is great. You can see what's going on. I mean, I play race driving on it, and that's about all I play on it. But outdoors, if I'm going to be playing, this is the thing of choice, except maybe one other, but this is cheaper than that one other that I will refer to in a little bit. And so I would be less concerned about getting sand in it and trashing it, because you know, you can pick them up dirt cheap. Yeah, Game Boy Pocket, great, really. I mean, it's a practical size. It's a sensible size. It will fit in your pocket, hence the name. And it does what it does very well. Think I made my point. I like it. Game Boy Color. I don't like these as much as I like the Game Boy Pocket, oddly. Yeah, they play colour games, but it's the screen. It's too dark. It's not quite as bad as the unlit GBA, the Game Boy Advance, the original one. You can see the screen a bit better than that, but it ain't bright enough. I don't play this. I've got one. Actually, I've got two. I've got a blue one up there, and then I ordered a yellow GBA Pocket, and they sent me a yellow GBA colour because they were an idiot. But anyway, I couldn't be bothered to send it back. But you know, they're a nice size. They're just a little bit fatter than the GBA Pocket, and that's cool. And the only downside with these is the screen. It's colour, but it's too dark, and you've got to be somewhere really well lit to make effective use of it. What is that? Is that some kind of infrared thing? I guess they communicated in some way or other, so you could do 2-player. I don't know. I've never done that. What have we got? They've got some kind of link-up thing as well. I don't know. They're good, but the logical thing to do now would be to go on to the GBA, but I'm not going to, because there was competition for the Game Boy, and I'm not sure which it started with, but I'm going to start with this, which is the Sega Game Gear. I've got the TV tuner plugged onto this for reasons that are completely pointless, because you can't use it anymore. There is no analog signal here, so that useless. What do I think of the Game Gear? I'll be honest, I don't like it. I understand what Sega were thinking, and their logic made sense. They got the Master System, they were able to miniaturize it, the technology inside it, and indeed add a larger colour palette, which was cool, and put a colour screen on this, which in performance terms actually, you know, kicks the arse off of the Game Boy. And I mean, everyone knows this already. It meant battery life was appalling because the screen was lit, and it was expensive, and to be honest, the screen is bloody awful. It is one of the, I would say it is one of the worst screens I can think of on a handheld. It isn't the worst. There is one that is worse that I can think of, and I'll come to that in a bit. So yeah, bad screen, poor battery life, and I'll be honest, I don't like the games. I don't like the Master System, and if I don't like the Master System, I was never going to like this. So yeah, I find it technologically interesting. I totally understand what they were trying to do. They failed. It wasn't a big seller. I mean, yeah, they're not rare by any means, but in terms of making massive amounts of money, or even useful or meaningful amounts, you know, it wasn't a business success. Do I play it? No, not really. It's there for its historic importance or whatever. You know, a lot of what I collect for two reasons. I collect because I like to play them, and I collect because they are historically important, and I guess this is kind of a little bit of a personal museum. So yeah, this one I don't play it, but it's something that if you're a collector, I think it's necessary to have one. And then you have this. Alright, this is the Mark II. It's the Atari Lynx. I don't know if this came out before or after the Game Gear, but I don't care. This has some of the fallbacks of the Game Gear. Battery life is appalling. Screen quality, yeah, it's colour, it's backlit, but contrast and stuff and resolution are shite. However, this is a powerful little beast. Obviously more powerful than the Game Boy, which was its main competitor, but it also kicks the arse off the Game Gear. I think the screen resolution might be lower than that of the Game Gear. I'm guessing, I could be wrong. It's pretty chunky. Contrast is not great. Viewing angle is piss poor, but slightly better than the Game Gear. But the games are great, kinda. They don't... Arcade games, that's what this was all about really. There were conversions of arcade games. Robotron, I can't remember what games I've got actually. It did sprite scaling, it does 3D, it's not dedicated 3D, but this will kick polygons or filled polygons, never mind vector graphics. It's designed, actually, some of the people who were involved with the Amiga were involved with this, if I remember rightly, and I might be completely wrong about that. But anyway, it's got some very good technology in there. It was pretty well ahead of its time for a handheld. It does very impressive games. I I like it a lot. It's also clever in that you've got buttons there, but you've got buttons there, so it catered for the left-handed person. Because if you were, you know, I would play it that way, but if you were left-handed, you just turn it over. And that's clever. It's a simple thing, but it worked. The biggest downside with these was they were expensive. They were too expensive to be successful, really. I mean, yeah, more advanced than the Game Boy, but it just could not compete. It didn't have the kind of games that people wanted to play by them. This was like arcade games. It was a quick play. You went for a high score. But by now people were playing Mario, and that's what they wanted on a handheld, and that's what they got with the Game Boy. And so they put up with black and white to have the big, long games that were kind of more of an adventure than an arcade thrill. But I like it, because I'm more into the arcade quick thrill. And so, do I play it now? Yeah, actually I do. Not ever so often, but I would certainly play this more than the Game Gear. It's one. I mean, I don't take this. I don't carry this around. This is not something I use as a. I'm going out. I want a handheld with me, so I'll take one of them. It's far too big for that. I mean, the size is ridiculous, and it was that Atari doing customer surveys and stuff like that, and they concluded that people wanted value for money, and they thought that if it was bigger they got better value for money. That's what was wrong with these. They didn't realise that smaller is actually better when you've got a portable. I still like it. So, diving in at the high end of the market is this. What a beauty. This one, unfortunately, it's got the capacitor problem. The audio is completely shot unless you use headphones. You plug headphones in and it's fine. It's got one dead pixel, which was a very common problem on these as well. It is the PC Engine GT, before I start waffling too much. Basically, this is a PC Engine crammed into a handheld with a little active matrix LCD, I believe that's what it is. Most like the Game Gear and the Atari Lynx were passive matrix. This is active matrix. What that means is it looks better. That's as much as I can tell you about that. It just plain looks better. It's got a TV out. I believe that's a TV out. It's got all kinds of stuff here actually. It's got an aerial tuner thingy you plug in there. I believe that's a video out. Might be a link-up cable actually. I could be wrong about that. Volume, brightness, ear socket. What's that? And power in. And you had turbo buttons as well for your fire. It is a PC Engine, and I mean really. And my PC Engine's up there. They didn't have to miniaturize the PC Engine all that much to cram it into one of these because they were already tiny. So they took all that and bunged the best screen on the market for a handheld into it, and it's fantastic. Ignoring the fact that the sound on here is shot, if you like the PC Engine and you like PC Engine games, these are bloody awesome if you want to play them on the go, because you just plug PC Engine games into them. Like the Game Gear is basically a Master System but with extra colours. But you can't play, well, you had to get an adapter converter, to plug Master System games in. Generally the games came on their own little mini cartridge. This, well, PC Engine games come on a little tiny cartridge anyway, and it being a PC Engine, you just plug the PC Engine cartridge in and you go. Which was great if you had a PC Engine already and a library of software. You know, you just took this, you get the picture. Brilliant. Downside, battery life is appalling, and it was astronomically expensive. They could not compete. In terms of mass market appeal, this was never ever going to work. It was never going to compete with the Game Boy or even the Lynx. But for someone who could afford one, absolutely awesome. I paid stupid money for this. They had it in a Game Station in Milton Keynes, back when Game Station still did retro hardware and software, and I'm not even going to tell you what I paid for it. It was over the odds. But I saw it, I wanted it, I had the money, I bought it. Awesome. Just too expensive. So, everything at this time was competing with the Game Boy. With different amounts of success or the lack of. And mostly stuff was more expensive. You know, they'd go for colour, they'd go for advanced everything. Or what was advanced at the time. One company went the other way and designed something cheaper. And that was Watara. With the quick shot, Watara with the Supervision, branded as Quick Shot in the UK and maybe other parts of Europe, not sure, definitely in the UK. This, well, it's kind of novel. It's got a similar kind of screen to the Game Boy, similar kind of quality, maybe not quite as good, but not far off. You know, there's a bit of ghosting, fast movement was gonna be hard to see, but to be honest, fast movement is not a factor on one of these. Quality is not appalling for the hardware, it's quite good. It's big, it's got a bigger screen than a Game Boy. You got this weird, it does that. I don't know why. I mean, the idea being, I suppose you hold it like that and you've got a better viewing angle. Nah, that was a gimmick, really didn't matter. Battery life was pretty decent, if I remember rightly. 2 buttons. It basically is a Game Boy rip-off in terms of quality, size. They were cheaper. Unfortunately, what they didn't have that the Game Boy had was a decent library of good games. There aren't a lot of them. I've got a few games for this, and I've got to say they're almost universally rubbish. Yeah, and that's kind of what let these down. It was good that they were cheap, but without games sell the hardware, and that's a universal truth in the gaming market. You got to have good games to sell your hardware. It doesn't matter how good or how cheap your hardware is. If there aren't appealing games on it, no one's going to buy it. And the games look like they've been knocked up overnight in the garden shed by someone who was blind. I don't know, or maybe the blind person's guide dog. They're just rubbish. And then Sega decided they wanted in on the act, and they did this. I say and then, a lot of this is actually kind of not in chronological order. What was this competing with? I don't know. I mean, the Atari had pretty much fizzled out. The GBA wasn't out yet. This was in 95, I think. The GBA was 2000, if the thing on the back of that is anything to go by. Maybe I'm... whatever, I don't know. It's the Sega Nomad, and it's a Mega Drive in a handheld. And it's somewhere between fantastic and insane. Did they sell in Japan or were they just in America? I don't know. They didn't sell them here in the UK. I got this on eBay. No, Andrea got me this, in fact, on eBay. For what it is, it's fantastic. You just put Mega Drive games in it, or Genesis ones. They all fit. It's not region protected or anything like that. Batteries come in a removable battery pack. I mean, it's kind of weird in that it looks nice and sleek and whatever like that, which is what you would want in a handheld. But to play it like that, you've got to plug it into a power supply. It will work on a standard Mega Drive or Master System power supply. I think it's the, you've got 2 different sizes of barrel thing there. It works with the smaller one, which is like Master System or Mega Drive Mark II. Screen quality is okay. You can get replacement screens for these, which are a lot better, but I like to keep these things original, so this is an original screen. It's alright. It's better than the Game Gear. It's better than the Lynx. It's not up there with the, well, GBASP or anything like that, but it's tolerable. Batteries, yeah, okay. Well, you put your batteries in here, and what is it? Is it 6 AA's? I can't remember. Just trying to remember how to put the thing on now. There we go. Shed load of batteries, and they don't last very long. Do I use this? Yeah, actually I do. It's kind of, you might want to say why, or ask why, because you can play these games on, say, a PSP or I don't know, my Android pad. Why would I want to play them on this when the screen is so much worse and it consumes batteries like an idiot? And the answer is I don't actually know. I don't know, but I like using it. Maybe it's just, it feels right. The D-pad is a proper D-pad. It feels good and responsive, and you got those buttons, and there is something cool about this. I mean, you can get those Blaze Mega Drive handheld portables, but they just ain't right. You play this, you're playing it as the games were meant to be played, and you've got like a video output there, and you can plug it into your telly or whatever. And I do that with this for playing Genesis games, because I'm not going to like shave the lugs off of the cartridge socket of my Mega Drive so I can plug Genesis games in. So I put them in here, and I plug this into my telly and play like that, which is good. And there's a controller port there as well. You can basically use it as a Mega Drive and have 2-player games. It's impractical. They were stupidly expensive. They failed abysmally in the US. They were cropping up in bargain bins for silly money for a while, when now they sell for a lot of money. These are, especially in the UK, they're probably not too hard to come by in the US, but in the UK these are a bit of a rarity, which is partly why I've got it, because it's like, yeah, that's cool, I want one. It took a bit of finding. And then we have this, the Gamecom from Tiger Electronics, produced in 1997. It is hard for me to express just how bloody awful this is. It's shocking. They were sort of competing with the Game Boy, but not. I mean, I think the Game Boy Color was out by the time this was out, wasn't it? Probably. I don't know. Black and white screen. Touch screen, you've got a stylus. It's got PDA features on it, which in all honesty are fairly rubbish. It had internet access, which in all honesty was completely rubbish. Even the instructions that came with the internet attachment, plug-in modem, were wrong. So very, very few people ever got one of these online, and it was a paid-for service if I remember rightly. There was no good reason to use it. Touchscreen is resistive and fairly crap, but it had a fair few games that were produced in-house. They paid for like big licenses, Duke Nukem 3D, and I mean, there was Batman, there's some Sonic the Hedgehog on here, right? Is there Sonic the Hedgehog on this? I think there might have been. Williams arcade games, I mean Defender, all of which sound impressive. But the screen on this is shocking. You think motion blur on the Game Boy was quite bad, the ghosting and everything. On this, when something moves, it vanishes. You can't see it. So if you've got a fast moving game, no, if you've got a game where anything whatsoever moves, you can't play it. You'll be like, where'd my man go? Well, he's gone, he's vanished, he's teleported over to a different part of the screen and will reappear momentarily. It's appalling, and it renders every game on it unplayable. I've got videos of it linked down there to the playlist somewhere, might be on the screen somewhere as well. It's shocking. The sound is shocking. It does samples, and in that way it's kind of impressive, but it had limited channels. Really, I believe Nintendo looked at this Many of the features of it, the touch screen aspect, the sort of, well, there's some organizer PDA-ish things which, yeah. The internet access, they looked at this, and then quite a long while later, they came up with the DS. The DS is one of these done properly with another screen added on. The designers of this had a very, very good idea. It was clever. It should have been successful, but budgeting and cost cutting rendered it appallingly shite. And it's a shame. Could have been good. Instead, it's the worst handheld you could possibly be unfortunate enough to buy. Bar none. There is nothing worse than this. There are some other things that I don't have that apparently are quite bad. The Game Mate, or the Game King, or the Game Duck. I think they're meant to be quite not great. This is worse. they're nothing worse than this. If you see one, if you're thinking of buying one, don't. If you do, you're crazy. But I hope you didn't pay more than a £5 for it, because it's an expensive doorstop or a big fat bookmark or something like that. I mean, there are things you can do with this, but playing games is not one of them. Yeah, I don't play this. So from around the same era, and I'm not sure exactly when was this, 99, Neo Geo Pocket Color. I love this. I think this is fantastic. There will maybe be those who bought one of these and thought they were getting a Neo Geo AES in a handheld. No. I mean, you can get that Neo Geo X now, but frankly I wouldn't bother. It's not, but it's very, very capable. It is 16-bit, proper 16-bit. I mean, the Atari Lynx was touted as 16-bit because some of its chips were 16-bit. It had 16-bit graphics processors, if I don't miss my guess, but it had an 8-bit CPU. This is proper 16-bit. This is, I think it's more, is it more powerful than the Sega Nomad? I think it might be. I might also be wrong. The problem is there aren't the games available to be able to make that kind of an assessment. Beat 'em ups, if you like beat 'em ups, there are stacks of them on here, and there are like puzzle games and card games and not a lot else. It kind of has a limited range of games. A couple of sports games, good game of Pac-Man, and it's got the real reason to have this is the what's it bloody called, Metal Slug. It's got Metal Slug, the first and the second mission, two separate games, quite different in the way they work, but they're great, and it's worth having just for them. It is colour, it is reflective, it has no backlight. Brilliant little joystick. Can you hear it's clicky? It's not analog, it is digital, but it's fantastic. I love it. The screen is good, though it's reflective. You can use it in pretty average light. You can use it indoors, so long as it's reasonably well lit. You know, you'll be sitting there trying to get the angle right and stuff, but it's doable. Outdoors is excellent, and it's just fantastic. It takes two AA batteries and a little lithium thing for the memory store. What's it in here? Almost as good as a GBA SP. Not quite. In my opinion, I prefer this to the original GBA. I do. It's got a better screen. So it's nicer to use, but it doesn't have the software library, so it's kind of like, I like it a lot. I do sometimes take it around, you know, I'll stick it in my bag if I'm going somewhere, if I think, yeah, I fancy something different, and I will sit and play this at home. It's not one that just sits on the shelf as an interesting curiosity. It is worth playing. If you see one cheap, buy it. You know, if you want to play games on a handheld and you see it cheap, it is worth buying as something to use. I think it's fantastic. Underrated. I bought this for £35. It's like SNK had gone bust, and then SNK Playmore kind of came into operation. That I can't remember the exact story, but they were flogging these off in blister packs rather than the fancy cardboard box, and it was like £35 plus 6 cartridges, and a number of cheap places were selling them, and I snapped it up when I saw it because worth every penny. Neo Geo Pocket Color, awesome. So out at a similar kind of time, when was this? 99, is the Bandai Wonder Swan, designed by the same guy who designed the Game Boy, Gunpei something or other. Sadly deceased, car accident. He designed this for Bandai to compete with the Game Boy, having it, Nintendo had shafted him royally, basically, over the Virtual Boy. They rushed it and then blamed him for it not being good enough, and he left. Designed this. This is a good piece of kit. It's got a fairly good screen. It's not appalling. It's kind of it's a bitch to record on camera, but it's clever as well. In the control scheme, you can play it horizontally, so you've got like D-pad there, control buttons there, or you can do it vertically like that, and that's clever. It only takes, was it one or two batteries? Can't see it. I'm going to break it if I'm not careful. I'm just not going to force that. Strange battery compartment. It looks like it'll be a what? There's one. That's weird. One AA battery. That is very efficient. So do I use this? No. Problem with this is it was only released on the Japanese market, or to the Japanese market, or in the Japanese, whatever. All games are in Japanese, and that doesn't matter with some games. Like I've got that game Gunpei, which is an interesting puzzle game, and I could just about work out what I was meant to do with it, kind of. I've also got, there's like RPGs, lots of RPGs on this, and I ain't got a clue, you know, they're full of text and weirdness, and I don't know how to play them. I say that, I've only got the 2 games, so I don't know how to play one of them. And when I see games come up for it on eBay, they've got the weird Japanese names that I haven't got a clue what they are. Are they good? Are they bad? Can you play them if you only speak English? Meh, don't know. So I haven't bought anything else for this. I don't play it. It's worth it. I'm glad I've got it because it's an interesting, historically important piece of kit. It's a good demonstration of what a great designer was able to do with proper support from the company he worked for, when he wasn't being shafted. Unfortunately, as a non-Japanese person, I can't really take advantage of it. Maybe when I've got the money I will look into getting some more games for this, but for the moment it's a museum piece, really. So, Game Boy Advance, out in 2000, if what it says on the back of this is anything to go by. Game Boy Advance Mark 1. I don't like this. There may be some who will be surprised to hear me say that. Game Boy GBA SP is my favourite. This I don't like. I was aware of them when they came out. I played like Game Boys quite a bit and seen the Game Boy Color and thought, eh. And then this came out and I looked in the magazines and the games looked great. And then I went and saw a demonstration of it in a shop. You know, they'd got one sitting running that you could play, and I just plain couldn't see what was going on the screen. It was too muddy and dark. The shop wasn't especially well lit, but nevertheless, I just thought, I'm not going to be playing somewhere that has spotlights shining over my shoulder. I'm not going to be playing outside in bright sunlight all the time, because this is England and we don't have bright sunlight all the time, and we also have that thing called night. So I didn't buy one. I thought, interesting technology, rubbish screen. And I stand by that. And I didn't really like the horizontal layout of it. I mean, I know the Lynx had the horizontal thing, and I kind of liked that. But Game Boys to me were meant to be vertical. And so when this wasn't, I was not keen. And then these came out. And it was quite a while before I got one, but GBA SP, when did this come out? 2002, if that's anything to go by on the back. So I mean, there are, I've got 4. No, I lie, I've got 3. I've got 4 here. That's not mine. That's the red one is Andrea's. It's here for safekeeping because we know where it is. This I bought. This was my first SP, and I like the design. I mean, yeah, it's cliched and blah blah blah. There are things about the SP that I don't like. There are not many things. I don't care that there's no headphone socket. I just don't care. It was kind of cheap and money grabbing of Nintendo to require you to put an adapter in to put in a headphone socket, but no. The screen on this is not ideal. This is the front lit version, which is a bit... The biggest issue I have with these is actually the quality of the plastic. This is rugged as hell, and it'll take a beating and still look pretty good. These are a lot more fragile in the plastic and the quality of it. I mean, this, I'm quite sad it's got quite scratched up on there. But I've had this for donkey's years. It's gone, well, I've had it since 2002, 3, somewhere. No, I lie. I got this in 2005. Anyway, it survived very, very well, and the battery life on it is incredible. I bet if I turn this on now, oh, I just closed it, that's stupid. I bet, yeah, I have not charged this in years, literally years, and it's still holding a charge. How fantastic is that? Epic battery life. So I've got that one. There's Andrea's red one there. I have this one. It's a pink one. What the hell am I doing with a pink one? I have Pete, PSI236, to thank for this. He sent me this one along with Barbie and the 12 Princesses. And that turned, I did a video of Barbie and the 12 Princesses on the pink GBA. And that is my most popular video on this channel. So thank you, Pete, once again. You don't know what you did when you sent me these. I get so many views on there. I don't know why. People are strange. And then I've got this one, which was sent to me by William, SVT512. This is the proper backlit GBA SP. It's interesting, actually, just looking at the two. I don't know how well this will come out on camera. No, you can't really tell. If you look at them from the same viewing angle, that screen is grey, that screen is black. That's not what makes it so cool. What makes it so cool is it has a proper backlight instead of the crappy front light in that. And that means that when you play the games, they look fantastic. It's the same kind of screen as you get on the DS, albeit not touch screen, obviously, but you know, the screens are good, and this is my favourite handheld. I have more capable handhelds, but this does absolutely everything I want. I love I love GBA games. They're the kind of games I want to play. There are lots of retro games on them, or they're kind of pick up and play. They have all the qualities that I look for in a video game, and they work perfectly on this, being that they're designed for it. Love it, absolutely. If I'm going away anywhere, or I want something on the go, game-wise, this is always my first choice to put in my bag and take with me. It's perfect. Love it. And thank you, William, again, for sending me that, because it's just bloody awesome. So then we have this. It's the GBA Micro. this, until William sent me that SP, this was my portable of choice. Well, it kind of wasn't, it kind of wasn't. It was always a toss-up between this and the front lit SP. I would usually carry that tribal print one around it. That was more comfortable to use. This has a better screen. Granted, it's smaller, the screen is tiny. It's got a really, really good screen. But I have two problems with this. One is the tiny screen. I don't mind that it's tiny on principle because it is such a good screen. But I'm getting old and I can't, my close-up vision is shot. Without my glasses, I have to hold it here, which is just not, you know, you don't want to play like that. And looking through my glasses, I've got to hold it out here to be able to focus, and then it's just, it's too small. You know, I miss details, it's too far away. That's one problem. The other is, I just don't like the shoulder button position on it. I don't know where they could have put them, but they don't work. You got to hold it in a really stupid... No. I can't do it. My hands are the wrong size for those to work. If I was... Like Doom. Doom was the one that I was most frustrated by because he needed the shoulder buttons and I just couldn't do them. I couldn't operate them quickly, or, you know, there'd be some dithering and by then I was dead. So for that, this, I love it. I really love it, and I would often, you know, this will fit in your pocket and you can forget about it. The SP, I stick it in my bag, but this was one, if you wanted to stick something in your pocket, was perfect, but it was limiting because of the awkward buttons and the knackered eyes. If I was younger, that would be my system of choice, but I'm not. I'm an old git with bad eyes. God, I'm not sure where this fits in the history timeline thing among all the other systems. It is the N-Gage. It's a telephone. It's the taco. I mean, God, you walk around like that and people look at you like a freak if you used it as a phone. I didn't. By the time I bought this, certainly no phone service on this. But it's an interesting thing as a handheld. It has fairly decent quality graphics. They work. It can do 3D better than a GBA. Not as good as a DS. But then, given that this was out quite a bit... what year? I don't know what year this was out. What was out at the same time as this? I don't actually remember. I should have done a bit of research, but I didn't. But anyway, it is capable. It has capable gaming hardware in it. There are two things that let it down. One is, in the same way as the GBA Micro, that screen is tiny. And the vertical orientation of it as well makes some games kind of odd. It's not entirely what you want. You'd rather have horizontal. Viewing angle, sort of alright. It's not really bright enough. It's quite a dull screen, but it's tolerable. The biggest letdown is actually that it's a phone. You've got a D-pad, and that's fantastic, and I really... Android manufacturers are cottoning on to the fact that gamers want a D-pad. They want proper controls. You know, they had it with this, and then all your iPhone and your touchscreen controls and blah blah, and everyone was jumping on the touchscreen bandwagon, and only now does it seem that manufacturers, certainly with Android, if not Apple, are realising, no, actually, if they're going to use this for gaming, they want proper controls. This gave you that. So the D-pad's alright, but your other game controls were on the number pad, and that's not good. You lose your button, and if you've got to stop and look and try and remember which button was it on, you've already lost. You've crashed, you've died, whatever. So that battery life is appalling. This thing, this thing the battery drains whether it's turned off, whether it's playing, whatever, it just doesn't matter. A couple of days turned off and this battery's flat. It could have been great, but it isn't. It's a shame that performance-wise it's got what it would have took to make a very good gaming system. If they'd have ripped out the phone part, gave it some decent controls and ripped off the number pad, just had a couple of buttons or 3 buttons or whatever, and given it a better screen, this would have been brilliant. It's a shame they didn't, really. Okay, a system that is frequently described as the worst handheld or the worst gaming console ever made. Wrongly. This is the Gizmondo, and it's bloody brilliant. It is fantastic. Anyone who says it's rubbish has never used one. The company that sold it were rubbish. They were it was run by a bunch of crooks. But the designers who designed this knew what they were doing, and it is a tragedy that it didn't succeed in the way it should have done, that it wasn't marketed properly, that the people running the company took the money and ran and didn't spend it selling this. The Gizmondo is so ahead of its time. It's got GPS, it's got internet access, it can play videos, it can play music, it can play really quite impressive games. They're not quite up to the PSP, but they ain't far from it. It's just got a whole shed load of stuff on it, a lot of which appears on Android systems now. It's got a camera, it can take photos, I can't remember if it can take video or not. It's got this lovely rubberized feel where you can drop it and it ain't gonna, well, it certainly ain't gonna get scratched up anyway. It's very rugged. The screen is brilliant. It's better than a PSP screen. It's not as big, but it doesn't have the ghosting. Shoulder buttons are okay. D-pad is alright. These buttons along the top here are pretty rubbish actually. I don't know what they were thinking with them. These buttons are good. Good size, good spacing. After the GBA, this is probably my favourite handheld. It's a good size and you can hack it. This one has been hacked. It's got custom firmware in it. Every game that was ever commercially released you can get on the internet to run on custom firmware, which is great given that it was a commercial flop, so there wasn't a lot of software and it's not ever so easy to come by. The sat-nav doesn't seem to work on here anymore. I don't know why, because GPS still functions. It's a good size. It is a tragedy that this suffered the fate that it did. They really should have, when Gizmondo flopped, someone should have bought this up, but they were all scared, I think. PSP and DS were out at around about the same time. It was like, there were 4 handhelds that came out around the same time. There was the PSP, the DS, this, and the Tap Wave Zodiac. Who remembers that? I don't have one of them. But this, awesome. If you get the opportunity to buy one of these, and they're not hard to find on eBay, and you're not afraid of putting in the custom firmware, and it's not difficult, don't ask me how to do it. I can't remember. You can Google it as fast as I can. But I do know it was easy to do. Stick custom firmware in it, get your games off the interwebs. There are some very, very good games. Thingy Burns' Rally. And I want to say Pete Burns, but it's not. I've made that mistake several times now. Richard Burns, is it? I don't know. Anyway, it's a decent rally game. Sticky Balls. Dodgy name. Jensen Button, some Jensen Button racing game, which is, it's alright. There are some really colours. It's kind of like their Grand Theft Auto wannabe game that wasn't finished, but you can get it. There are quite a few games that weren't finished and commercially released, but you can get them. if you can find one at a sensible price, I highly recommend it. Battery life is pretty shite, but you know, so what? It's worth it. Links down there somewhere. Playlist. I've done videos. I love it. Gizmondo. Epic. So we get on to the more modern stuff now. Nintendo DS. What do I think of these? I like the hardware. I like the size. It's not as convenient as a GBA SP, but you know, it will fit in your pocket sideways. Well, that way. The dual screen is interesting. I like the technology. Alright, it's resistive instead of capacitive, but on a thing like this it just doesn't matter. I have two problems with this. There are two reasons why I don't play this. One is the games. I cannot find games that I want to play on here. I've got a I've got a pass your driving testing. I use that quite a bit. I've got a selection of books, old, out of copyright books, like 100-year-old classics. I can't read that because my eyes are shot. I've got some compilation of classic card games and board games and blah blah. Yeah, okay, I don't play that. I have got Mario Party. I didn't choose that. I don't play that. Tank Battles. Nah. There are... I'll get on to this. Alright, what do I actually play on here that I think is good? Mario Kart. That's good. I love Mario Kart on here. And Metroid Prime Hunters. That's really quite impressive. I like that. I think it's cool. Controls are a little bit iffy, but... Oh, and I've got Geometry Wars Galaxies. That's probably actually the second best game on here after Mario Kart. I love that game. Ridge Racer DS. Pretty much a straight-ish conversion of Ridge Racer for the Nintendo 64. And I really... Actually, I don't really like that game. I love the original Ridge Racer, and when I got it, I thought, oh, awesome, I'm going to love this. And that's when I found another problem. These. They're too close together. They're too small, and they're too close together. I'm not a fat-fingered person. I've got little hands, but when I'm pressing, quite often I end up pressing more than one. And with Ridge Racer, when I was pressing accelerate, I was also pressing the brake. And it's too fiddly. The buttons are too small for anyone other than a very small fingered child, in my opinion. It wasn't a one-off. It happened too often. It ruined my game too often, and I stopped playing it. That's really quite tragic, because I think this is good. Technologically speaking, it's a great piece of hardware. The design is great. How do the buttons compare? I want to compare the buttons on... No. You see, they've been getting smaller as the years go by. The Game Boy buttons are really quite big and fat and a reasonable space apart. These are a bit bigger and a bit further apart, and then here they cram 4 of them right really close together, and no. That don't work for me. Hey, it's a shame. So this... Well, that's why this gets played more than this. Smaller, more practical, buttons are the right size. This, great, more advanced. I just can't find games I want to play on it. And even though it will play GBA games on here, which is a good thing, it's easier to play on this just because of the buttons. So, that brings us to this. And indeed, this. PSP. That's a PSP Fat. That's a PSP Slim. There's not an awful lot in it except that that's fat and that's not quite as fat. This has a pretty crappy screen in terms of latency, ghosting. This has bad ghosting. black. Objects that are black, if they're moving rapidly, they leave a trail across the screen. And you don't want that. It doesn't ruin the game, it doesn't make it so you can't see what's going on. But it's annoying. I noticed it most playing Grand Theft Auto. And it was annoying. A lot of people complain about the disc-based games. I've forgotten. UMDs? What were they called? Are they UMDs? I'm thinking WMDs now. Yeah, I thought they were fine. Didn't have a problem with them. Lots of features on here that mostly I don't use. Play video, play music, access the internet on a god-awful browser that was absolutely rubbish and you just wouldn't bother. This one is hacked. I got the custom firmware on this. This one I largely use for emulators. It'll play a pretty decent Neo Geo game, rendering the Neo Geo X completely pointless and stupid and over expensive. It's pretty good for emulators. I didn't keep up with the custom firmware. Installing it got, at that point, a little bit convoluted and I kind of lost track. So this one sort of sits still and doesn't get used for anything other than the emulators and stuff that are installed on it. And I have this one, which is the Slim, which has less severe ghosting. It's lighter. And I use this for modern game, well, you know, recent PSP games. This one's from China, well, not China, somewhere in Asia, which it turns out they're region locked when it comes to UMD films. So if I want to watch a video on a UMD, I have to watch it on the other one. Unfortunate, but there you go. The screen is a bit better, it's a bit brighter, it doesn't have such severe ghosting, but it does have... there's something about it that wasn't quite right. Was it grainy or was it fat? There was something. They'd fixed one problem and created another. It wasn't quite right. Do I use these? No, I don't. And the reason is not maybe what you would think. Technologically speaking, I like these. I don't mind the disk system thingy on them. It doesn't bother me. Slow, you know, slightly slow loading. I don't mind. Battery life about 6 hours. It's all right. It's nothing compared to a GBA, but you know, tolerable. Oh, then of course you have that, the analog nub. That is a useless piece of crap. I loathe it. If I'm playing a game, if I can use the D-pad instead of that, I will. If they insist on you using this, it spoils it massively for me. But that's not why I don't use these. It's the games. No, it's two things actually. It's the games and it's the size. I like a handheld to take with me when I go places. If I'm, let's say, going on the bus, I don't need to anymore. I've got a car now and I can drive. But sometimes I'll go on a train. If I'm just out and about and killing a little while, say waiting in a waiting room, say the doctor or the dentist or whatever, a handheld is a good thing to have. These are too big to fit in your pocket or carry around. They're a little bit fragile. You'd be scared of cracking your screen. This one, I don't know what happened, but it's got a, where is it? It's got a crack around there somewhere. I don't know how that happened. They're a bit too big, they're a bit too fragile. I'm nervous of them getting broke if I take them anywhere. You can't fit them in your pocket, so it's got to be in a bag. The other thing is, the games are big. GBA games are like quick pick up and play. Some of them, you know, you can have a long game if you want to. You can have saves and come back to them. But they're not massively involved. They're kind of fairly light. Games on these are like playing a PS2 game. They're long. There are lots of saves. There's a lot of depth to them, which is great on a home console game where you want to get involved and get into the deep storylines or whatever. But that's great for when you're at home. That's no good when you're sitting in a waiting room or sitting on a bus. So you could play it when you're at home. But if I was at home, I would play on my PS3. I would play on a home console, not one of these, because the display on a home console is obviously much better. The only time I find one of these useful is when I'm on holiday. This is good for in a hotel room, when it's raining outside. You know, you can't go to the beach because it's pissing around. It's pissing it down. So you play one of these. That is the only time one of these, to me, makes sense. If I've got a lot of time to kill and I'm not at home. Otherwise, you know, a portable to me is, it's got to be very portable and it's for a quick play. You haven't got lots of time to kill, you're just killing a few minutes. These don't do that. These are not right for that. That's why I really am not interested in buying a Vita. Because I expect the Vita to have exactly the same problem. It will be more advanced than this, it will have better graphics, it will have better processing power, it will have better controls, it's got all the fancy touch screen features and blah blah blah. Everything on it is more advanced and technically impressive, but that's not what I want in a portable. That's not what I want when I'm out on a train or in a waiting room, and if I'm going to be at home, I don't want to play a portable at all. I want, you know, I'll play on a big telly, thank you very much. So that is them. That is why the GBA SP with the back screen for me is the best. Now, that would be it. But it ain't. Because from 2006, the most recent handheld that I bought is that. This is not a serious piece of kit by any means. It's a Lexibook Zeus. I don't really know what this is. I believe it's 16-bit. It's Chinese. They make them in China. Mark at Classic Game Room just reviewed something based on the same hardware, Game Capsule or something like that. Same internals, different games, but some of them are the same. It is a cheap piece of Chinese rubbish. It's got about 20 or 30 games built in. You can't change them, you can't put in more games. Some of them are rubbish, some of them are really quite good. 3 AAA batteries, not included. This cost me about 20 quid, I think. And I think it's great. It's not a serious piece of gaming kit, but at 20 quid you don't expect that. But what it has is a number of games that are very, very playable. Quick, pick up and play, waste a bit of time. In a handheld that you could give to your kids and not worry if they trash it. Because they probably will. Build quality is... it's kind of Woolworths or B&M type build quality, you know. It's a Poundland Spec. It's cheap, but for what it is, I think it's brilliant. I have heard other people who've had these or ones that are similar and just say they're rubbish. The buttons are not great. In fact, I think some of the buttons don't actually... Well, there might be auto rapid fire versions of the buttons below them, maybe. The D-pad is fairly rubbish. Trying to hit a diagonal on it is like, forget about it, you're not going to do it. It has an output on it, you can plug it into your TV. I don't know what I did with my cable where I can plug it in. But there are numerous different versions of this. It's an oddity in that they're releasing it when they did, something that's like a 16-bit thing. Some games look a little bit Neo Geo-ish, as Mark said on his recent video, but largely you're talking Mega Drive-ish quality games. It's an oddity for it to be released in the 2000-ish, 2006, 2007, whatever, when things like the PSP were around and doing well. But it's so cheap, it sort of makes sense. It is. I think it's a kid's toy, but if you're a gamer and you like a certain kind of game, you see one of these on eBay going cheap, I actually think it's worth buying one. Take a chance that your controls will work and won't be knackered. It's something worth throwing in your bag and taking with you when you go somewhere, I reckon. Yeah, Lexibook Zeus. Okay, that is that. That's all of the handhelds in my collection. My favourite, GBA SP with backlight. Thank you, William. Least favourite, Gamecom. Big, big, big sack of shit. Don't ever buy one unless you just want something to jump up and down on for the fun of it. And that's all I've got to say about that. I'm not going to do a shout out because I haven't been paying attention and I haven't seen anything that's grabbed my attention. So what's coming up? More of the same. As you may have seen, I've had problems with my Spectrum. I've got other Spectrums that I'm going to have a go with, see if I can get a decent signal out of them. I'm going to take a soldering iron to the +2. Maybe do that mod that you can do to them that I saw that I'm kind of scared to do because I'm not into modding, but it doesn't look too difficult. Yeah, but gameplay videos, there will be some. I'm not entirely sure what they will be on. They'll either be on the Spectrum or maybe another 8-bit system because I've got that VCR sitting down here. So the Dragon 32 is calling to me, so maybe. But then there's the Beeb and the C64 where I've got these SD cards full of stuff for them that, you know, could be anything. Who knows? Yeah, final plug for the video I did where I went and visited where I used to live, and it's like a 2-hour 40-minute video. If you're remotely interested in seeing where I used to live and listening to me talk about it at great length, link down there. That's going to be it for now. Thank you for watching.